In 1932, the Australian military lost a war against birds. Not a metaphor, not an exaggeration. Machine guns, real soldiers, and the birds won? That is not even the strangest entry on this list. It's not even the strangest thing a government has declared war on. One of the 8 stories coming up involves an emperor declaring war on the ocean itself. Another one starts with a single human ear, pickled in a jar, shown to a room full of politicians. 8 wars, real ones. Thousands of documented deaths in several of them. And every single one started over something you would be embarrassed to admit caused an argument at a family dinner. Let's start with the ocean. In the year 40 AD, the Roman Emperor Caligula marched his army to the coast of Gaul, modern-day France. He lined up thousands of soldiers facing the English Channel and gave the order to attack. The enemy was the sea. Historians still argue about why. Some think it was a genuine delusion. Some think it was a calculated humiliation of his own troops, who had refused to cross into Britain. Suetonius, the Roman historian who wrote about Caligula decades later, claimed the emperor ordered his men to stab at the waves with their swords and collect seashells afterward as spoils of war. Spoils of war against water. The soldiers were later given a bonus for their bravery in battle. Against the ocean. I don't know what's funnier, that this happened, or that someone had to process the paperwork for it. He built a lighthouse on the coast afterward to commemorate the victory. It's still standing in Boulogne-sur-Mer, more or less, nearly 2,000 years later, a monument to the day Rome beat the sea. 90 years before Caligula lost his mind at the coastline, a different kind of war was brewing between 2 Italian city-states. Modena and Bologna hated each other. This wasn't unusual for the time. Northern Italy in the 1300s ran almost entirely on hatred between neighboring towns. But in 1325, a group of soldiers from Modena crossed into Bologna and stole a bucket. A wooden bucket. From a well. Bologna considered this an act of war, not a diplomatic incident, not a strongly worded letter. War. They mobilized. The Pope got involved. Because the Pope got involved in everything at this point in history and sent 30,000 soldiers to back Bologna's side. 30,000 men over a bucket. The battle that followed killed roughly 2,000 people. Modena won, and here's the detail that still gets me. They took the bucket back to Modena as their prize, and it's still there. In the bell tower of Modena's cathedral, you can go and see the actual bucket that 2,000 people died over. I've seen photos. It's just a bucket. It's not even a nice bucket. Let's jump forward 400 years because the next one involves a body part. It's 1731. A British merchant ship captain named Robert Jenkins was boarded by Spanish coast guards in the Caribbean who accused him of smuggling. During the search, one of them cut off his ear with a sword and told him to take it back to his king as a warning. Jenkins kept the ear. He kept it for 7 years. In 1738, he appeared in front of the British Parliament and produced it, reportedly pickled in a jar, as evidence of Spanish brutality against British sailors. Whether the ear was actually his by that point is genuinely disputed by historians. 7 years is a long time to keep a body part as a prop. But it didn't matter. The public was furious. Parliament declared war on Spain in 1739. It became known as the War of Jenkins Ear. That's the actual name historians use. Not a nickname, the official name. Between 20,000 and 30,000 people died in the fighting that followed, most from disease rather than combat, spread across the Caribbean and the Americas for close to a decade. All traceable back to one ear, in one jar, shown to one room of angry men in wigs. Not every war on this list dragged on for years. Some of them barely lasted long enough to make the history books properly. The Anglo-Zanzibar War of 1896 is officially recognized as the shortest war in recorded history. Zanzibar's sultan died, and a rival claimant to the throne seized the palace without British approval, which violated a treaty. Britain issued an ultimatum. The new sultan ignored it. At 9:02 in the morning on the 27th of August, British ships opened fire on the palace. By 9:40, it was over, 38 minutes. Around 500 Zanzibari soldiers and palace guards killed or wounded. One British sailor injured. The fastest war in human history was also one of the most one-sided, and it started because someone didn't fill out the correct diplomatic paperwork before claiming a throne. Not every entry on this list needed a body count to be ridiculous. Some managed to be completely absurd without a single death. In June 1859, an American farmer named Lyman Cutler shot a pig on San Juan Island, off the coast of Washington. The pig belonged to a British settler and had wandered onto Cutler's land to eat his potatoes. Cutler offered $10 in compensation. The pig's owner wanted $100. Cutler refused. The British threatened to arrest him. Within weeks, the Americans had sent a company of soldiers to the island. The British responded by sending 3 warships. By August, there were over 2,600 American troops and 5 British warships carrying more than 70 guns, facing off across a single small island over a pig that had already been eaten. The standoff lasted nearly 3 months. Not one shot was fired at another human being. The only casualty of the entire pig war was the pig. British Admiral Robert Baines reportedly refused a direct order to open fire, saying he wasn't going to start a war between 2 great nations over a squabble about a pig, which is, genuinely, one of the most sensible things anyone says in this entire video. At this point, you might be thinking humans have never been particularly good at this. You'd be right. If you think this entire list is embarrassing, let me know in the comments which one offends you most. Personally, it's the bucket. A bucket. Not every war on this list even involved an enemy that existed. In the summer of 1754, the town of Windham, Connecticut, woke in the middle of the night to a noise nobody could explain. A deep, guttural, overlapping roar coming from somewhere in the darkness, rising and falling for hours. The residents were convinced it was an attack. Some accounts say they believed it was a Native American raiding party. Others say they thought it was the arrival of the French. They grabbed their muskets. They fired blindly into the night for hours, defending the town from an enemy nobody could actually see. At dawn, a group of men went out to investigate the battlefield. They found frogs, thousands of them. A nearby pond had dried up in the summer heat, and the entire local frog population had gathered in the remaining puddle, fighting each other for the last of the water. Windham had gone to war against frogs and lost several hours of sleep doing it. The town leaned into it rather than living it down. Windham's flag still features a frog today. There's a statue of 2 frogs in the town center. Nobody who lives there seems remotely embarrassed, which might be the most self-aware entry on this entire list. And finally, the one that circles back to something you already know. Sport can lead to more trouble than it's worth. In June 1969, El Salvador and Honduras played each other across 3 matches to qualify for the World Cup. The football wasn't the actual cause of the war. There were already deep tensions over land, migration, and thousands of Salvadoran migrants living in Honduras. But the matches poured fuel directly onto it. Riots broke out at every leg, fans were beaten, property was destroyed. Diplomatic relations between the 2 countries collapsed within days of the final whistle. On the 14th of July, El Salvador invaded. The fighting lasted just over 100 hours. Roughly 3,000 people died. Tens of thousands of Salvadoran migrants living in Honduras were displaced overnight, losing homes and land they'd lived on for years. It's remembered casually as the Football War, as if it was about football. It wasn't, not really. But the football is the reason it's remembered at all, and that's the uncomfortable truth sitting underneath every story on this list. The real causes are always bigger and messier than the trigger. Nobody remembers the land disputes. Everybody remembers the football scores. 8 wars, a bucket, an ear, a bird, a pig, a pond full of frogs, a football match, a throne, and an ocean. Thousands of people died across these conflicts combined, and in every single case, the actual spark was something almost embarrassingly small. That's not really a coincidence. Pride doesn't need a good reason, it just needs a moment, and someone in power willing to escalate it. The bucket wasn't really about the bucket, the ear wasn't really about the ear, but try telling that to the people who died over them. If your country ever goes to war over something this stupid, at least you'll know you're in good company. Let me know below which one you think is the most embarrassing moment in military history. I have a feeling the ocean one is going to win. If you enjoyed that, there's plenty more where this came from. New videos every week. Subscribe so you don't miss one. Badly Drawn World. History. Badly Explained.